God designed a hidden law into the earth itself that most people never notice. When a seed sits in dry ground, when there's no water, no softening, no breaking down of the hard shell, nothing happens. The seed has everything it needs inside: life, potential, the blueprint for roots and branches. But without moisture, without the breakdown of resistance, the seed stays locked. Dead potential. This is how fear works in your life. You're sitting right now with gifts God placed inside you before you were born. Talents, callings, relationships, blessings that are already yours. But fear is the hardness around those seeds. Fear is the drought. And as long as fear remains unbroken, as long as you refuse to let it soften you, to let it crack open, those blessings stay sealed inside you. Listen to what Jesus told his disciples in Luke 12 verse 32. He says, "Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom." Notice the structure of that sentence. He doesn't say the kingdom is something you earn. He doesn't say it's for people who are brave enough or qualified enough. He says it has already been given. Your Father, the one who spoke the universe into being, has already pleased himself to give you what you need. But then he addresses the real issue, fear. Because the gift is yours. The blessing is assigned to you. But fear creates a barrier between you and the receiving of it. Think about what happens inside a seed when water finally comes. The moisture softens the shell. It penetrates. It breaks down the resistance. And in that breaking, the seed doesn't die. It comes alive. The hardness that seemed protective actually becomes the very thing that was preventing life. This is the paradox nobody talks about. Your fear feels like protection. It feels like you're being wise, careful, realistic. But what if fear is actually the shell keeping you from the very blessing that's already addressed to you? We live in a generation obsessed with safety. We manage risk. We plan for worst-case scenarios. We tell ourselves that if we just stay small enough, careful enough, invisible enough, nothing bad will happen. But here's the hard truth. The very strategy you're using to protect yourself is the strategy that's keeping you locked away from what God is trying to give you. God didn't call you to stay safe. He called you to stay faithful. In 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, Paul writes to a young leader who is clearly wrestling with fear. He says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." Notice what he's saying. Fear is not from God. It's not a gift God gave you. It's a spirit, a force opposing you. And it's in direct opposition to the power, love, and clarity that actually is from God. But here's what most people miss. Paul isn't telling Timothy that fear doesn't exist or that he shouldn't feel afraid. He's telling Timothy to recognize where fear is coming from. It's not from his father. It's a lie that has attached itself to his mind. And the antidote isn't courage. The antidote is recognizing that God has already given him something stronger: power, love, and a clear mind. When a seed is buried in darkness, in soil, in hardness, it doesn't panic. It doesn't try to force its way up. It simply responds to what's real. Water comes. It absorbs. It breaks open. And then, almost without effort, it grows upward toward the light. Your blessing is waiting for the same thing. Not for you to be fearless. Not for you to have all the answers or see the entire path. But for you to stop resisting. For you to let the reality of God's faithfulness penetrate the hard place where you've been protecting yourself. Maybe you've been afraid to start that business because what if you fail? Maybe you've been afraid to step into that calling because what if you're not enough? Maybe you've been afraid to be honest in that relationship because what if they leave? Maybe you've been afraid to dream because what if God doesn't come through? But notice what's happening. In every case, you're already experiencing the fear. You're already living inside the anxiety of those questions. The only difference between staying locked and breaking open is whether you're going to let that pressure transform you or just trap you. The soil doesn't question whether it's worthy of holding the seed. The water doesn't ask if it deserves to break open the shell. They simply do what they were designed to do. And somewhere inside that broken seed, life doesn't hesitate. It grows. But you do hesitate. You question. You negotiate with your fear. And that's where everything gets stuck. There's a moment in John 11 that reveals this pattern with devastating clarity. Lazarus is dead. He's been dead for 4 days. His body is already decomposing. And when Jesus arrives, he doesn't immediately raise Lazarus. Instead, he goes to the tomb and weeps. He cries. And then, here's the part people miss. He commands the stone to be rolled away. Now, Martha, Lazarus's sister, immediately panics. She says, "Lord, by this time there is a stench, for he has been dead 4 days." She's saying what everyone is thinking. This will be horrible. This will be ugly. This will offend people. Don't do this. But Jesus responds with a question that cuts through every excuse. Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? He's not asking her if she's brave. He's not asking if she's ready or if circumstances are perfect. He's asking, do you believe? Because belief and fear cannot occupy the same space at the same time. One has to give way to the other. When the stone was rolled away, there was no guarantee that Lazarus would rise. Martha had experienced death. She knew what dead bodies do. Her fear wasn't irrational, it was based on everything she'd ever witnessed. But her fear was also based on a limited view of who God is. She knew death. She didn't know resurrection. This is where most believers stay locked. You know your failures. You know your weaknesses. You know what happened the last time you tried. That knowledge is real. It's not false, but it's incomplete. You don't yet know what God can do in and through those very failures. You don't yet know how He specializes in raising things that everyone else has written off as dead. In Psalm 27, David makes a confession that sounds almost reckless. "One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek Him in His temple." And then he says something that seems to contradict itself. "Though an army besiege my city, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident." How does someone live like that? How does David sit in the middle of actual warfare, not metaphorical struggle, but real enemies trying to kill him, and say his heart will not fear? Because he's already made a decision about who he's looking at. He's already chosen to gaze on God's beauty rather than on the size of the army. He's already decided that proximity to God matters more than the absence of threat. Your blessing isn't waiting for you to become fearless. It's waiting for you to become God-focused. That's different. That's the shift. Right now, you might be focused on the army. You're measuring the size of the obstacle. You're calculating the odds. You're rehearsing what could go wrong. And in all of that focus, you've lost sight of the one thing that actually determines the outcome: God's character, God's power, God's commitment to you. When Peter walked on water in Matthew 14, he didn't fail because he was afraid of drowning. He failed because in the middle of walking toward Jesus on impossible ground, he looked away. He saw the wind. He saw the waves. He felt the storm. And in that moment of diverted focus, his belief shifted. The water couldn't hold him anymore. But notice what happened next. He cried out. Jesus immediately reached him. And Jesus asked him a question that matters. Why did you doubt? Not, why were you afraid? But, why did you doubt? Because doubt is a choice. Fear is a feeling, but doubt is a decision about what you believe to be true. And that decision can shift in an instant. The blessing God has for you, the calling, the relationship, the work, the healing, the restoration, all of it is already moving toward you. But it cannot fully manifest in a life still gripped by doubt about who God is and what He's capable of. So here's what changes today. You're going to name one specific fear that's blocking one specific blessing. Not all your fears, not your entire life. Just one. The one that keeps coming back. The one that wakes you up at night. The one that whispers that you're not enough, or it's too late, or it won't work, or you'll mess it up. That fear is like the hard shell around the seed. It's not the enemy. It's not demonic. It's just hardness, resistance. And it's time to let it soften. Here's the mental boundary for today. Every time that fear surfaces, you're going to pause. You're not going to fight it. You're not going to pretend it's not there. You're going to acknowledge it and then ask yourself one question: am I looking at the obstacle, or am I looking at God? That's it. Just a redirect of focus. Because the obstacle doesn't change the size of God. Your fear doesn't change His power. But your focus changes what you believe is possible. Father, I come before you right now, and I'm laying down the pretense. I'm tired of managing fear. I'm tired of protecting myself into prison. I'm tired of looking at what I've failed at instead of looking at who you are. You've already given me blessings. You've already assigned callings to my life. You've already moved in ways I haven't even recognized yet. But I've been so focused on what could go wrong that I've been blind to what you're trying to do right. So today, I'm shifting my gaze. I'm looking at you. Not at the size of my obstacles, but at the size of your faithfulness. Not at my inadequacy, but at your sufficiency. Not at what failed before, but at what you're building now. Break the hardness in me, Lord. I'm ready to soften. I'm ready to let the pressure of this season do what it's meant to do, not crush me, but crack me open so that life can finally grow through me. Cover my mind today. Guard my focus. Every time fear whispers, let me hear your voice underneath it saying, I've got this. Trust me. And Father, do this not just for me, but for everyone watching right now who is locked in their own shell of fear. They have gifts the world needs. They have a calling that matters. But they're trapped by doubt about whether you'll really come through. Show them. Show us. Let us see the glory of God in the impossible things we're too afraid to attempt. In Jesus' name, I pray. If this message landed with you, if you felt God speaking to something specific in your life, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment below and let me know. Share this with someone who's locked in fear about their blessing. And if you haven't already, subscribe so you get daily encouragement like this delivered to your life. Because what we're doing here, it's not just content. It's a community of believers learning to look at God instead of at our circumstances. I'll see you tomorrow.